Welcome to the Founder Hotline. I'm your host, Ruben, and if this is your first time here, this is a podcast for founders. It's not going to be the kind with tips that you need to implement, with frameworks that you need to pay close attention to, but you can look at this podcast as the voice notes that I would send to my founder friends, to friends in general, to other people. And this is a thing that I used to. I used to send a lot of voice notes to my friends on WhatsApp. And at a certain point, they just said, yo, this is very cool that you want to share all of this information with us. But if you're going to make it a show anyway, how about you just upload it somewhere and make it an actual show? And that's what I decided to do with it. I'll be thinking out loud. I'll be having a little sip every now and then. I'll be playing with these fidget marbles that I want to talk about later on as well. And you're going to hear all of it. So it's going to be messy, but that's also a bit the point. This is going to be unfiltered. It's going to be unedited. I try not to restart recording when I'm fucking things up. And if that's not something that you're down for, then now is the time to zoom out. Now is the time to listen to something else, because this one will be messy. As an entrepreneur, I run a company called Kommodoor. I work with founders of growing companies. And those are the ones that built a system, that have built a business, but have along the way realized that they are the bottleneck within their own business. And I help them to build a plan that is their own. Not some kind of a template, not some kind of a book, but their own plan. If you have been listening to this podcast before, you'll notice something different. I'm speaking English now. And that's new. And I'll tell you about it later on in the episode. I'll tell you the why behind it. But the short version is what I do doesn't really stop at a border. Now, let me tell you about what happened last week. I think the story starts somewhere in the lines, I think it was November 2025, when I was listening to the podcast of Jonathan Courtney. Should you know me, or should you have listened to my stuff earlier on, then you probably know that Jonathan Courtney is a man that I look up to. It's an entrepreneur that I connect to as well, because he has a pretty specific journey of figuring out ADHD, of figuring out his own creativity, figuring out how he could market his products. And a lot of what he does really resonates with me. So that also means that I consume a lot of the content that he produces, which is also his own podcast, for example. It's called The Unscheduled CEO. And during this one episode, he was talking about a retreat that he was going to organize. This is a thing that he wanted to go to himself. This was a thing that he was looking for to be organized by other people. But he realized after a couple of years, no one is going to organize this because it's so super weird. I will have to do it myself. And so he did. He started talking about it, I think, years and years ago. And what he wanted to do was a creativity retreat, or like a creative entrepreneur retreat, a productivity offset, a way of disconnecting from the world and just having time to play, to figure out creative stuff, to hang out with other people that may feel like they're spiced in the same way as you are, but mostly to focus on creating stuff, on getting into your creative side. And this idea of him was called Area X. I think the earliest name that he used was Already There. That's the brand name. I think you can still find it at alreadythere.com. But this first retreat he called Expedition 1 Area X. Now, I will be talking into some details of this retreat. I'll try to keep it more of a surprise, because this retreat might happen again in the future. No one really knows. Jonathan is also himself not really sure if he's going to ever organize something like this again. But he did invite all of the attendees over there to organize something like it, because he, of course, wanted to go to it. In the meantime, by the way, there's the post lady who has been using my front yard as her logistical place. So she's just driven her bike here together with like some big ass box on wheels, and she's using this as her like little logistical center to figure out packaging stuff. So if you hear a lot of beeping in the background, that's the post lady figuring out her stuff on my front yard, which is very handy. I will try not to get distracted by it. So Area X, Expedition 1. This might happen again in the future. We're not sure. We were invited to organize it ourselves, but we're not sure if it's going to happen again, who's going to organize it. But in any case, it was a bit of like a mysterious thing, so I'll try to keep it as mysterious as possible. I will share some details, but I'll try to not over-explain, so not to ruin any future experience. So what was this about? We were sold, or it was marketed as a creativity retreat or a productivity offset. It was marketed as something weird, something that you should not go to if you're rigid or if you're not open to discovering new things. It was also for you to like get into it, for you to like apply to go. You would have to fill in this very really organized typeform thing with a lot of tough questions that were basically made to scare you off. Like if you are not the person that would enjoy this, you were the one that would hate these questions and you would just, walk away or run away screaming. But I actually kind of liked the questioning. I liked the way that it was put together, and also like the idea of surprise. Because nowadays we have so much control of what's going to happen to us. We know what we're getting into, and there's no real way of getting an actual surprise. Like if you're going on a holiday, you know exactly what's going to happen. You've planned it out with like an AI tool, you know what things you're going to be seeing. There's no element of surprise in there like at all. However, this retreat was going to be very unorganized, was going to be very unscheduled. It was just, you're going to be away for 5 days. You will not have any devices, like you're going full analog, and that's about it. So we were supposed to leave depart from Berlin. We left in the early afternoon. We were supposed to give away our devices. We stepped on a bus, and that's all we knew. So we got on this bus. I think we drove for about 2 hours. We arrived in, I think I can best describe it as a little village. I think if you want it, it could probably house about 100 to 150 people, and we were 20 there. This was our own little space, and that was the whole point of it as well. They wanted it to feel as if it was abandoned, as if it was like some ghost town that we were just, stumbled upon, but we could use the whole space. We were put into our own rooms, and then we had like some sort of an opening session. And within this opening session, Jonathan gave a little bit of clarity. Not really, but he at least gave what he thought was the best thing that we should know about this retreat. So the point was, there's meal times, buffet style. You can just show up whenever you want. If you don't want to eat, that's fine. But Jonathan mostly invited us to break away from our usual patterns. If you're a person that wakes up at 6 a.m. and you don't feel like it, don't. If you're a person that does a lot of sports and you don't feel like it, then don't. If you feel like you should get to bed early enough, but you actually really don't want to, then don't. If you want to live the other way around and sleep during the day, be awake during the night, you can. So there were no actual rules, and you could explore this whole little village. There were a lot of rooms, a lot of places with like stuff inside, with no stuff inside, that you could just go out and explore. And there was a lot of stuff just lying around. There was Lego, there were art supplies, we had musical instruments, we had so much art stuff, like art supplies. We had Sharpies, there was aquarelle paint, there was acrylic paint, there were brushes, all sorts of paper. I mean, you couldn't think of it, and it was there. And it was just there for us to play with. Another thing that Jonathan invited us to was to not feel pressured to do anything. Like if there is an opening session in the morning and you don't really want to go, then don't go. You're not going to miss out on anything, but you can if you want to. If you want to go to every session, that's fine as well. So my own little mission for the week was to regain access to this creative part of my brain, which as a pretty productive guy and as a pretty sporty guy, it's a normal thing for me to feel productive as well and to want to feel productive. I don't want to miss out on things. I don't want to fuck up my schedule. But this week was all about getting back to my creative side and also getting back to my playful side. So I think the first evening I just decided to let it flow, and that may sound as a little bit of a oozy woozy thing, but what I just decided was I'm not going to plan ahead. I'll just see what happens, and let's find my comfort in there. And as days went by, the first day I already super connected with one person. Her name is Brooke, and she's the one that gifted me these like fidgety marbles that I was talking about before as well. It's magnetic little stones that you can hold in your hand while talking, so that you have something to play with. And for an ADHD brain, it's the coolest thing that I ever owned, and I've been doing it the whole time as well. I'll do it. Some ASMR stuff in front of the microphone. I do feel like I'm having technical issues with my microphone, by the way. So I'll have to figure out what's going on there. I hope you're not having it, or at least I hope you're not suffering from it right now. This is already enough of an insufferable thing to listen to, so I hope it's at least somewhat nice. Anyway, so there was 20 people there, and I think what really connected all of us was the fact that we were all a bit on a sort of spectrum. And I'll let you color in the blanks for yourself. But everyone over there was spicy in a way. Let's call it neurospicy. But everyone's brains there worked on a different plane in the universe, I think. And that's what was really nice as well. Because if you put a lot of people together that are usually the odd ones out, then all of a sudden no one is really the odd one out. And I think that was very magical about this experience, because it was such a weird thing to get invited to, or to attend. There was no single person that would feel left out, or that would feel as if they were the odd one out. So for me, what I think, looking back on it, was the biggest learning, or the biggest takeaway, is that I've never really felt as home inside of my body as I felt last week. Just by being around a lot of people that were like-minded thinkers, or that had the same kind of spiciness, the same kind of humor as well, that really allowed me to be myself. And that had me feel at home within my own weird way of thinking, or my own way of acting as well. So I think my biggest realization is how comfortable it can feel if you don't have to switch the volume button, if you don't have to turn down the volume of who you are. And I think the best way to do that is to be surrounded by other people that can allow you to also be the full volume version of yourself. And I think I received the most beautiful compliment that you can ever receive. I received it, I think, Thursday or Friday, somewhere in the last few days. This woman came up to me. Her name is Laura. She's from Belgium as well. And she said to me, "Ruben, I want to thank you for all of the person that you brought as yourself. Even though it might have felt a bit hard in the beginning to be around a person that is loud and that is so comfortable in being themselves, even though that was the case in the beginning, I do, however, feel as if it welcomed me to bring all of myself to the table as well." So instead of being told to turn down my volume, I was invited within the room with the message, because you are so much yourself, you invite other people to be themselves as well. And I think, at least for me, as a person that has felt way too much in the past, as a person that has been too loud or too weird in the past, this to me was the most beautiful compliment that I could ever receive. So that's one of my main takeaways, is if you surround yourself with people that are as weird as you are, or as like-minded thinkers, then you will feel more yourself, and you'll be invited to be more of yourself as well. But the other way around counts as well. If you are surrounded by people that do not allow you to be yourself, and that do not appreciate you for all the things that you are, then logically you're going to turn down the volume. You're going to start dimming yourself out just to be able to fit in. And I'd like to invite more people to turn up their own volume button, or to be more of themselves, and to invite others to do so as well. One of the realizations I made for myself on a business level is Well, I think let's start with this. No one really asked about what you were doing. They first connected with you and they started talking, and only after a few minutes we had conversations on what are you actually doing in business? Like what is your business like? What do you do for work? But that was like that was like an afterthought. That was not the first thing that we were talking about. And what I realized is that I didn't really have like a one sentence thing ready to go. There were a lot of people that were able to talk about their business or their profession with such ease, and they would just go, I create this type of website for this type of company, and I do it in this type of software, and this is the problem that I solve. Very crisp and very well positioned, and the harder I tried, the harder it got to get a good explanation of what it was that I'm doing, or at least what it is that I'm doing. I think the language barrier might be a thing over there as well. I felt, I've never had to explain what I do in English a lot, so it was a bit of a challenge as well. But what I realized is that this story still needed some shaving, and as what I do is a bit, I wouldn't call it vague, but it's not something that you can easily productize. It's not something that you can easily put in a store and have people buy it. So I would need the right story to go about it. And I know myself as a person that likes to use metaphors, and I like to use like analogies to get my story over. And one of the stories that I kept going back to was the athlete story. I like to compare founders and creatives with athletes, because they have this profession, they have this passion, they have this thing in which they put all of their energy, all of their worth for them to excel in this one specific thing. And that's how I see founders as well. And a thing that I see with founders, but that you would never see with athletes, is following someone else's training plan. Have you ever seen a football player trying to train like a cyclist? No, because that's a super weird thing to do. Why would you train like a cyclist if you are in the end a football player? That's not going to work out for you. But even though if you are a football player or a cyclist and you would have a training plan for your specific profession, then still you need it to be catered to your needs. You're only going to become as good as you can be by following a plan that was specifically made for you. And still I see a lot of founders that take plans and strategies, they just pick them from other people and they try to make them theirs. Whereas that's never going to work. And that's where I come in. I help out founders to figure out a plan that is going to work for them in the first place. And then we can start translating it into the business. Because a company is never going to outgrow its founder. So that also means if you as a founder have stopped growing, then your company will have stopped growing as well. And this doesn't mean that you have to keep growing as a company or as a person, but this does mean that if you don't have a plan that is catered to you, that is then translated to your business, then you're probably not going to be growing, or you're not probably going to get to the point where you think, this is nice, I want to keep doing it this way. So that's a bit my athlete story. That's the main story that really stuck with me, and that I'm going to use as like my main metaphor for the coming time. And I know it's silly that I'm promising this to myself, as knowing that I changed the name of this podcast, I think about 3 times in the past 6 months. So I'm not sure how long the story will last with me, but at least it's something that I want to get in the know right now, and have a little play with the coming few weeks. Another thing that really stuck with me from the retreat is the idea of a handler. And I like to think of this as what you see in the spy movies, like James Bond, for example. When he's walking around, when he's doing a mission, there is this person inside of his little earbud, and that's his handler. And this handler is reminding him of like the mission brief, or like, don't forget about this little detail, or have you seen this specific thing that might be outside of your field of view? And that's what they call a handler. And I think a lot of founders actually need a handler. I think a lot of founders, they try to offboard or offload tasks that are not for them. They try to delegate, but there's not really a person that handles the founder. There's not really a person that is allowed to call the founder and to tell them, yo, this is not what you should be focusing on right now. This is not the thing that you should be doing. Yet this is. And Have you checked this thing? Have you been on the right track for yourself and for your business? So this founder getting a handler idea is something that I really want to play with the coming weeks as well. Because I think with what I do in Kommodoor, I think a lot of the times I actually act as the handler for a founder. That's usually the job that I do for them, to make sure, first place, that they get a plan that works for them, but that it also gets communicated to the team and that they stick to this specific plan. So whenever watching a spy movie in the coming next weeks, think of it as this, or at least pay attention to what the handler is doing, and think of what a handler for you might look like. And also try to figure out, do you have a handler in your business? Because that might be an interesting thing to wander around about a bit. I wanted to get way more in depth on this handler idea. However, my time today is limited. So I'm gonna get straight to my English switch. From now on, everything that I do will be in English. If I would stop doing it, please remind me to get back to English. And I'll also give you a little bit of a heads up on why. Up until last week, this podcast was in Dutch, and basically everything that I did was in Dutch. I'm playing in a Belgian market, I'm playing in a Flemish market, so I'm making Belgian content. And then I spent a week with people from all over the world, and I noticed my English is actually not that bad. It's not just a translation of what I do in Dutch, it's how I compose, or how I handle myself as well. So me in English is a completely different personality than the person that I am in Dutch. However, I feel more at home with who I was last week. Also, what I do doesn't really stop at the Belgian border. So I was talking to a lot of these people. They wanted to stay in touch. They wanted to consume the things that I talk about as well. And they couldn't, because all of my stuff was in Dutch. So that's one of the main reasons to switch to English. And honestly as well, Belgium is a small country. It's one of the, no, it's not the smallest in Europe, but it's one of the smaller ones in Europe. Whereas a founder in London still has the same problem as one in Antwerp. And a founder from New York or Vancouver Island will have the exact same issue as the one that is living next to me. So a real bottleneck doesn't really care about the language that you speak. So that means from now on, this podcast will be in English, not because I'm leaving Belgium yet, but because what I do doesn't really stop at the Belgian border. And then finally, my last thought of the day, I came back from this retreat all fired up. I had a lot of new ideas, I had a lot of stuff going on, and I think I felt clearer than I ever did in months. However, I'm at a crossroads as well. I had an event planned at the end of the month with not the amount of signups that I wanted to happen. My pipeline is not moving as fast as I want to, and my bank account would probably have liked a different timeline from what's happening right now. But that's also a part of being a founder. And it's this uncertainty that I'm stuck with right now, this idea that still things have to land from last week. That's a bit what I'm struggling with today, I guess. I felt a hard time trying to boot back into getting to the business side of things. And actually, I want to use this as an invitation for other founders as well. If at a certain point you feel like things still have to land, give yourself the time to do that. And for me, that is recording this podcast. For me, that is sitting with my thoughts and thinking my experiences through and talking about it. And by talking about your experiences and your ideas, you start integrating it as well. And I think maybe that's the final little thing that I wanted to give with you. You can still read all of the books in the world. You can go to all of the classes and take all of the courses that you can. If you're not going to be integrating, then in the end, you won't take anything with you from that experience. So this week for me, other than putting everything in English, will be about integrating the retreat from last week. I look forward to talking inside of this microphone again in about 2 weeks. I will still train my English so that it gets better and better. And I hope to read some of your comments soon. I want to know what you guys think of this Area X thing. Like, would it be something that you'd go to? Have you been to an experience like that? I want to be in the know. Talk to you in a few weeks. Bye-bye.